bang, energy and change came to every part of our universe. Seismic or small, it continues.
Change is all around us, shaped by technology and human ingenuity. We can make it work for you and your business.
Thank you for joining me today, and thank you to the IMARC team for having me and allowing me to speak today. And I'll take the opportunity actually to congratulate the IMARC team for working hard and creatively to ensure this event actually still occurs in this most strange and at times virtual climates that we're in. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Rob Telford. I'm the Group Health, Safety and Environment Officer for BHP, and I'm responsible for our overall strategic direction for HSE right across the globe. The role is varied and as of February this year included the global response to the COVID pandemic that many of you have been wrestling with yourselves. And if I look broadly across the resources industry, you've done a very good job of it. So congratulations on that. But it's in my role of setting the strategic direction forward on safety that I want to talk to you today. A little bit about what we're doing in that space and what we're doing to take the next steps. But before I get to that, I would like to begin my presentation by acknowledging the traditional owners from all the lands from which we're meeting today, and for me to acknowledge my respect to the elders past and present, and also to the Aboriginal elders of other communities that are involved with the IMARC event itself. Safety sits at the core of our company. It's our number one priority. So every day, our first and last task is to ensure that the 80,000 odd employees and contracting partners who work with us get home safely at the end of their shift. And it's with that goal in mind, I want to talk to you a little bit about a program of works we have underway to take the next steps towards eliminating fatalities from our business. Working towards eliminating fatalities is not a new thing for us. We've worked for a long time, deeply committed to the safety of our people, to put in place the processes, the systems, the controls, the discipline that's required to help make the place safer, including such things as our field leadership program and our process safety systems. Now, I'll preface what I'm about to say through my own personal experience. Be very clear, one fatality is one too many. But as a direct result of the hard work over the last 10 years, BHP has seen a significant reduction in the number of fatalities that have occurred. Our field leadership program, as an example, that has our leaders out in the field in a structured way, engaging directly with our frontline teams on the hazards that exist in the workplace and working with them to come up with better ways to have a safer workplace, has contributed to that result. Last year, we recorded just on 1.5 million instances of field leadership, which, if you do the math, means quite literally that every minute of every hour of every day, our leaders from all levels are out there in the field with our frontline teams working to improve the safety. We've also worked really hard on building a positive, safe to speak up reporting culture. And this has been instrumental in us being able to learn more about what's working and what's not working out there in the field. So as that reporting comes in, we track and pay very close attention to the reporting of events that have the potential, if not for circumstance, to have been fatalities. They include a thing we call high potential injuries. These are events where there's been an uncontrolled release of energy that's resulted in injury. Doesn't matter how minor, could be a scratch on the finger, but if there's an injury as a result of that uncontrolled release of energy, that with slightly different circumstances could have led to a fatality. We call it as a high potential injury. Now, upstream of that, we track a thing we call near-miss events. These are events where there's been, again, an uncontrolled release of energy, but in this instance, there's been no injury. And if that release of energy, slightly different circumstances, could have led to a fatality. We track that as well. But we don't stop there. We go upstream again and we track a thing we call significant event hazards. These are circumstances all of our teams go looking for out there in the field, where those circumstances are such, although there hasn't been a uncontrolled release of energy, there is the potential for that to happen. And that uncontrolled release of energy could in turn lead to a fatal injury. And we use those to give us insights as to how well we're tracking in terms of either getting closer to a major event occurring or moving away from a major event occurring. And as we stand today, it's been 22 months since we last had a tragic fatality inside our operations. And this has been a testament for this period of time to the hard work of our teams. But as I said, one fatality is one too many. And yesterday's performance, for those of us that work in the industry, know full well does not guarantee tomorrow's. Sadly, across the industry, fatalities continue to occur. And internally to BHP, we continue to see near misses and injuries that with some other circumstances could have been fatalities themselves. This is not okay. This is not good enough. There's more that we need to do to improve. So our fatality elimination program has the aim over the coming years to significantly reduce the number of near misses with fatal potential that is occurring in our business. To do this work, we're going to drive it through two lenses. The first we call control shift and the second human performance. And let me tell you a little bit about them both. Firstly, the control shift. I mentioned earlier the near miss incidents and the injuries that continue to occur. The vast majority of them are coming from the usual suspects of risks that we all face. Vehicle interaction, dropped objects, electrocution, you know the list. And we observe that this is similar across other industries. Indeed, last Friday, Safe Work Australia released its 2019 work-related fatalities report, which provides for some interesting statistics. Across all industries, including mining, the report shows that just 4 mechanisms accounted for 74% of all fatalities that occurred in Australian workplaces in 2019. And the 3 most common causes of worker fatalities, vehicle collisions, fall from heights, and hit by falling object, accounted for over 2/3. For us, inside our company, over 90% of our fatal potential incidents fall within our top 10 safety risks. And a significant number of the controls that we rely upon to keep ourselves safe from those risks are in the administrative space at the lower end of the hierarchy of control. So a significant part of keeping ourselves safe is relying on people doing the right thing every single time, which, as we all know, can be hard to do because people, and that includes you and I, are far from perfect. So it's here in the top 10 risks that we need to make the shift. In the controls that we have, driving them to higher levels of effectiveness, from administrative to engineering, from engineering to separation, from separation to substitution, and onwards from substitution to nirvana, where we get to eliminate the risk entirely. But where the control sits in the hierarchy is only part of the story. You can have a control that sits nice and high in the hierarchy, but can be very difficult to maintain. And for any of you who have been involved in the early attempts of geofencing, autonomous and remote mobile equipment out in the mining world will know exactly what I'm talking about. Or you may have controls that hinder the ability of the very person it's trying to protect from being able to do their job. And for any of you that's tried to put a 6mm bolt onto a nut wearing safety gloves, knows exactly what I'm talking about. This is where a thing called human factors comes in. Many of you will know about human factors, but for those that don't, it's fundamentally a discipline concerned with how people do their jobs. And it's about how people interact with the technology, machinery and equipment around them as they do their work. It's becoming more of a focus these days, but it's not a new concept. It comes and originates from the aviation industry. There's a fascinating case study you can read online that talks about a spate of plane crashes that occurred at a point in time because pilots were becoming confused between the controls for the operating of the plane wing flaps and the controls for operating the landing gear. Once upon a time, in a certain model of aircraft, both controls looked the same, felt the same, and were positioned side by side. So they were often confused for each other, leading to catastrophic outcomes. So when the issue of the similarity was dealt with by the control designers, strangely enough, the incidents disappeared. So in our fatality elimination program, human factors allows us to take a much closer look at the interface between the controls and the people to ensure our controls are robust, aligned and adaptable. And what do I mean by that? In the first instance, we look at how robust the control is. How effective is it? How high in the hierarchy does it sit? And does it actually consider human factors? Then we look at the alignment. We ask ourselves, does the control make it easier for the person to do the job, or does it make it harder? We look at the adaptability of the control. If something changes on the job, does the control still work, or does it need to be reconfigured? And we do this all in a structured way to get a sense of how the human factors show up and whether we need to do more work. We take it even further. How does the control affect the ability to maintain the equipment? How well does the control work in all operating conditions, including emergencies, including commissioning and decommissioning? And how well does the control take into account human error, like mental blanks, autopilot mistakes, or errors in judgment? Obviously, getting a good handle on this requires input from our frontline teams to understand these considerations. So fundamental to our approach and what underpins it is a user-centric approach. We're actively involving hundreds of our frontline workforce, employees and contract partners alike, who are exposed to the risk daily to help us understand what's helping, what's hindering. After all, no one knows better the hazards in the workplace than the person that deals with them 12 hours a day, day in, day out. To the same end, we've been actively engaging more broadly with contract partners and the mining services sector, both here in Australia and in the Americas, to help us come up with new and innovative ways to deal with these old problems. And to date, we've been very pleased with the response. We've had over 700 new ideas come forward from these engagements, and 94 of them we've already shortlisted for the program. So in the first instance, we're looking at the controls inside our top 10, driving higher and higher into the hierarchy of controls, and then looking deeply in a structured way as to how do the human factors show up and what can we do in that space to make the controls more effective, more resilient, and more user-friendly. The second lens in the program is about human performance, because not all tasks can be automated. Not all risks can be separated, substituted, or eliminated. And so even with the best of environments, at the end of the day, we still have people doing work exposed to risks. So we've got to continue to improve the way we do that work to ensure the task gets done right every time we do the task. And so we look to the high reliability organisations that we have around the globe, such as you find in the nuclear industry, in the aviation industry, in the pharmaceutical industry, and in segments of the petroleum industry. And they teach us that the best way to do this work is to standardise the work, instill high levels of operating discipline, and somewhat paradoxically for some, alongside that operating discipline, drive and foster a more inclusive, safe to speak up culture. As a company, we're fortunate we already have significant programs of work underway that will integrate well to deliver this for us. Specifically speaking, I talk about the rollout of the BHP operating system and the application of the process safety framework from our petroleum division more broadly into our minerals divisions. The BHP operating system does no more than take common elements of how some of the world's best companies operate and applies them to our context in a way that is suited to our business. And it's underpinned by three principles: empowering our people, pursuing operating perfection, and serving our customer. So simply speaking, this rollout globally of the BHP operating system, or BOSS as we call it for short, delivers standardised work and significant elements of the operating discipline through that principle of pursuing operating perfection. And the enhancements to the safe to speak up culture come naturally in the rollout of the systems and processes that are underpinned by the principle of empowering our people. I move then to the process safety framework. This has been taken from our expert practitioners in the petroleum space. What comes with process safety is an underlying operating discipline. So as we drive the process safety framework and the proficiency of it into our minerals business, elevated levels of operating discipline will come with that we can then more broadly translate across the company. So that will help us with the human performance shift on the way forward. So in summary, I'd say safety remains at our core. It remains our number one priority. We have made significant inroads into reducing fatalities inside our business, as many of you have in the industry. But we have much further to go to eliminate them. We have a sound base with strong reporting culture that's given us insights into the nature of the injuries, the near misses, and the hazards with fatal potential that still remain. And the next steps towards eliminating the fatalities is then over the coming years is to go hard after these near miss events that had the potential to be fatal and to drive them out of our business. And we will do that through a control shift and another shift forward in the performance of our teams. There's many of you who we're working with on this, and we look forward to the journey ahead with you. And for others, we look forward to sharing with you the insights and the learnings as we go through this. And I would thank you for joining me today. And go well.